All right, today we're going to talk about the body's invisible roadmap. It's what medical pros use to navigate the human body, and we call them anatomical planes. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll be reading this map like you've been doing it for years.
Okay, I had to start with that one. Yeah, it's a bit of a dad joke, but hey, if it helps you remember, it works, right? But seriously, all jokes aside, understanding these planes is absolutely critical in healthcare. So, have you ever actually looked at an MRI scan? It can just look like a jumble of gray shapes, right? Well, the secret is that doctors aren't just looking at some random picture, they're looking at a very specific slice, a particular view of the body. And here's the best way to think about it. Imagine these invisible sheets of glass passing right through a person. That sheet of glass, that's what we call a plane. And the flat 2D picture it creates, that's a section. It's literally the whole concept behind how MRIs and CT scans give us those images.
Okay, so how on earth are we supposed to keep all these different planes straight? Don't worry, I've got you covered. There's a super simple key, and it's the mnemonic SOFT. This one little word is going to be our guide for this whole thing. SOFT. That stands for sagittal, oblique, frontal, and transverse. So let's just dive right in and break them down, starting with S.
All right, let's get into the first two letters of SOFT. We've got S for sagittal and O for oblique. First up, sagittal. So this is a vertical plane. Imagine it running straight down from top to bottom, and its whole job is to split the body into a left portion and a right portion. But, and this is important, not all of these cuts are the same.
And here's where it gets a little more specific. If that cut goes perfectly down the midline, creating two equal mirror image halves, we call that a mid-sagittal plane. Super easy, right? Mid for middle. But what if the cut is off-center, creating a big piece and a little piece? That's a parasagittal plane. A really cool way to remember this is to think about the sagittal suture on your skull. It runs right down the middle, just like a mid-sagittal plane.
Okay, next up, the O in our SOFT acronym, the oblique plane. Now this one is kind of the rebel of the group, the oddball. Why? Because it's any plane that cuts through the body at an angle. Any angle that's not perfectly up and down or perfectly side to side. It's just slanted.
And the memory trick for this is just perfect. Ready? Obliques are odd. They run at these odd angles. And you know what else runs at an angle? Your oblique abs. Those muscles run diagonally across your stomach. Thinking about that physical connection can really make this one stick.
All right, we are crushing it. S and O are down, F and T are to go. Let's talk frontal and transverse planes.
So the frontal plane. This is also a vertical plane, just like sagittal. But here's the difference. Instead of splitting the body into left and right, this one splits it into a front half, the anterior, and a back half, the posterior. Oh, and you might also hear this one called the coronal plane.
Honestly, this one's probably the easiest of the bunch to remember. I mean, the name says it all, right? A frontal plane gives you a front section. Can't get much more straightforward than that.
And finally, we have the transverse plane. Now, this is a big one because it's our only horizontal plane. It slices the body like you're cutting it in half at the waist, dividing it into a top part, which we call superior, and a bottom part, the inferior.
So for this one, I've got two great ways to picture it. First, think about slicing a birthday cake right through the middle to make two layers. That's a transverse cut. Or you can think about what the word trans means, like in transatlantic. It means across. A transatlantic flight goes across the ocean, and a transverse plane goes across the body. Okay, we did it. SOFT. Sagittal, oblique, frontal, transverse. We've got the basics down. So now let's zoom out and talk about why this actually matters. Why is this invisible roadmap so incredibly important?
Yeah, this is so much more than just a bunch of terms to memorize for a test. I mean, this is the absolute foundation for everything in medicine. You needed to understand basic anatomy, to read an MRI or a CT scan, to figure out what's wrong with someone, and even to plan out a surgery. It's literally the language healthcare professionals use to pinpoint exactly where something is in the body.
All right, you ready for a quick pop quiz? Just to make sure this is all locked in? First question. If you make a cut that creates a top half and a bottom half, what plane is that? Yes, you got it. That's the transverse plane, the horizontal one. Just think of that flight going across the ocean.
Okay, one more for good measure. How about the one that divides the body into a front section and a back section?
Bingo! That's the frontal plane. See? The name gives it away. You've totally got this.
And just like that, you know the 4 major planes of the body, all thanks to SOFT. It might seem simple, but you now have the key to this fundamental roadmap that's used every single day in medicine. So the real question is, now that you can read the map, what are you going to discover?